one and I stand on that. You and me, babe, that's black on black.
Okay, and joining us, we still got to put together this game plan, Pam. She also would serve this country. I had to thank both of them because I wouldn't be for me, but both of them have served in this country of ours in the military. Let me welcome. She's the CEO of Center for Employment Justice, former congressional candidate from the great state of Florida. The one and only Pam Keith is here. Hello.
Hi. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Let me just say this before both of you get into it. We live in a nation where everyone has been asked to give an opinion because we all have a social media platform. Everybody's on somebody's TikTok or Twitter or Facebook, and everybody does their homework and their research on YouTube or wherever they go. So we all have very strong opinions. We're seeing things. We don't trust the media. It is a perfect storm right now for the kind of chaos that we're seeing in the world. With that said, with this platform, I just want to get facts. I want to understand some things. Yes, I've formulated opinions based on what I've seen, but also some of the people in my life. I've seen, folk like Rula Jabril. I see Chuck Modiano out there, Modiano. These are people that I know. And I'm looking at the protesters, both here and in Israel. I'm seeing Hasidic men being beaten by the Israeli military for protesting what's going on in the Gaza Strip, because at the center for me is humanity. And all I'm seeing is no end to this. There's no solution. And bombing the bejesus out of people is not going to get Hamas. If they've been planning for 2 years, they're ready for all of this. All I'm seeing is human carnage. So I need that to stop, and I need to figure out how we're going to stop that, Malcolm, first, because we were talking about that before we went to break.
I just want to answer that previous caller's comment earlier. One, I don't have a script and I don't have an agenda. Anyone that has ever listened to me knows I don't have a script or an agenda. I'm an old Navy chief, and all I do is tell you precisely what's on my mind. And quite often that is going to be at odds with other people's, lack of knowledge or, ability or inability to hear common sense. What I just gave out there earlier, that was pure, raw, unadulterated intelligence.
Right.
Based on the counterterrorism model. I
agree, and not to cut, because I need this to be a little pithier. I actually know that you talk from your heart and you say the things that you believe, but I also think your belief in things is formed by your commitment to this military, right? You can't divorce yourself from those 20 plus years as an intelligence working for this government, which we now see. Look, I'm looking at, like, from the Indian, what we did to Native Americans, to what we did to the Chinese, to internment of Japanese here, to the enslavement of Africans. If you were on the side of the military, you would be on the side of wrong and inhumanity throughout time. I'm just saying, like, at some point we have to understand our allegiances to imperialism will always lead to human carnage.
Well, in fact, it doesn't matter what my job was. I mean, my job was to give whoever was the national decision maker or whoever's in front of me the best intelligence based on culture, language, peoples, and common knowledge and activities that we see day in, day out. I've been working on this mission well over 40 years. I started reading about it when I was 12 in 1972 after the Munich massacre. So this is just something, I mean, I grew up in Philadelphia. This is a place where I had a better access to foreign cultures. And I've lived most of my life in the Middle East, in Muslim world, at times living as a Muslim. So this is not about me hating people. This is none of that.
No, but there is a value.
There's a value. Weight points in the story.
Right, but there's a value placed on 2 million people versus the folk on the other side. Like, there's a lack
I don't have
of
a problem
there.
with that. One question that the second part of your question that the caller made was that about why the Egyptians don't let the Palestinians in. Egypt has a population of 109 million people. It's huge. It is a huge country. They have their own ISIS war going on in the Sinai Peninsula. They can handle the infrastructure. They can handle the people. What they don't want is to reward what they think Israel pushing people out, and then to have the largest humanitarian refugee flow since the beginning of the Ukrainian war. Same thing with Jordan. I mean, the Palestinians tried to overthrow the Jordanian government in 1960 and 1970. The Jordanians do not want the issue on their doorstep anymore, even though they got 1 million Palestinians living there. They want it to be resolved in a two-state solution, as I do too.
Okay. Pam Keith, you
Yes,
served.
ma'am.
You were a military lawyer. You were
Yep.
out there in the streets doing that work.
Yes.
Important work.
You,
And
yes.
in the same sandbox as my friend Malcolm over there. And so I first of all, I always tip my hat to Malcolm and his service, not just his past service, but his current service, and to help the Ukrainian effort, which we an issue on which we both, are just extremely aligned. But on this one, we are very much not aligned, because I'm also the daughter of a diplomat. I was born in Turkey. I lived in Morocco and Syria, and my brother was born in Lebanon. I know a lot about that part of the world. My father was U.S. ambassador to Qatar. I understand that there is a point where what looks like a military objective is actually a political objective, and I think your listeners need to understand the politicals of all of this, which I think I can add some light to, because I was also a political candidate who went out there and tried to fundraise both from Muslim groups and Jewish groups, and was supported by Jews and Jewish groups in my efforts to get to Congress in a state that has a very, very strong Jewish population. So we need to understand that there are political things at play here that are far more responsible for what we're seeing than military objectives. At the end of the day, the reason Egypt is not allowing people into their country is not solely because they don't want to deal with that refugee crisis, because even though they are a large country, the 109 million, half of those million live in poverty, right? The problem is that we need to understand the difference between Sunni and Shia Islam. Palestinians are Shia Muslims. Egypt is Sunni. Jordan is Sunni. Palestinians are principally aligned with Iran. And so Sunni governments do not want any kind of mass population in their turf that is tied to Iran. Iran funds both Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon, which has completely destabilized that part of the world for decades. Neither Jordan nor Egypt want to invite that element into their population, period, full stop. That is really the essence of it. It's a political problem. Right. But there are also political delineations that transcend. And this is why Malcolm and I disagree. Whereas there is the difference between Sunni and Shia could be loosely correlated to this difference between Protestants and Catholics. There comes a point when enough Christians die that Christians in the rest of the world start to get their backs up. And we are rapidly, if not already approaching or exceeding the tolerance of any Muslim to see any other group of Muslims get slaughtered. And that is a downstream political problem for the United States, because our national security, I am not interested in the national security of Israel. I'm interested in the national security of the United States. And our national security interests are absolutely dependent on being seen as the good guys, or at least better than the other guys, and the ability to develop clandestine assets all over the Middle East, all over the Muslim world. And we are rapidly losing our capacity to do that, because now their backs are up. Malcolm is right. Israel is a very sophisticated military force. It has an extraordinary air force. It can do targeted bombing. The problem is it's not doing targeted bombing. So those of us who know what it can do and are seeing what it is doing are shaking our heads, because we're like, whoa, hold up here a moment. Well, when you drop a giant bomb in an entire apartment complex, you are not just targeting either a center or what is underneath that thing, right? Because there's a lot of ways you can get to what is underneath that thing without taking down the entire neighborhood. What they're doing is indiscriminate. What they're doing is and again, the problem from a political standpoint, as far as I'm concerned, is this question of, well, okay, what's your military objective here? The military objective keeps being articulated as the release of hostages, or keeps being articulated as when Hamas is degraded. But what it really is when every man, woman, and child in Gaza is gone. That's when Israel will feel safe. And but that's also true of how the Germans felt about Jews, right? We'll feel safe when every man, woman, and child who is Jewish is dead. That's they're not going to say that, but that's what it looks like.
Pam, can I ask you a question? Because first off, you're a JAG, you're a Judge Advocate General's officer. Your job would have been in the Strike Planning Warfare Center to have ruled on the legal and admissibility of targeted strikes, right?
Absolutely.
One thing I can tell you personally, because I've taken part in numerous major strikes, and strike planning from the signals and operational and imagery intelligence component of it, is that what I've only seen one, and I've watched this every second of every day practically. I have only seen one target set that the Israelis have used where they used non-precision dumb bombs. One. And that was when they hit Gaza University complex, which they believe was a rocket storage facility, which had multiple secondary explosions in it.
Right.
Indiscriminate means I have seen not indiscriminate. I have seen targeted bombings with enormous numbers of dumb bombs. Like when we did against ISIS, we used B-52s flying 76 500-pound bombs and dropped them into a box, right? Knowing that everybody in that box was going to get hit. What I'm seeing here is an enormous number of precision strikes, mainly in between streets. The buildings that they do, the buildings that they target, they are targeted. They intend for those things to drop. One thing that I've learned fighting in Ukraine and fighting in Kuwait and Iraq and Afghanistan is that, one, unless you're in that building, you don't know who's in that building. The Israelis, by our own encouragement, have taught them how to do what's called a double tap on the building, which is drop a small device that will shake the building, knowing that they have 5 minutes to get out of the building. I am not seeing indiscriminate bombing. The Israeli Air Force sortie rate, you could see indiscriminate. They have hundreds of aircraft, which could stack up day and night, dropping hundreds of thousands of bombs, which could kill 100,000 people in a day if they wanted to. I'm not seeing that. People are just seeing war for the first time on television in their life. And I'm sorry to say it, one of the factors that makes them draw a conclusion about what they're seeing, which is wrong, is because it's the Israelis.
Okay, I think I take on board what you're saying, but you got to let me respond as a JAG.
Sure.
First of all, when you're not in the targeting room in Israel, right? You were in the targeting room in the United States. I know the rules of the United States. I know how many targets we waved off because we were not sure. We also did not move 1 million people out of the territory before we decided to bomb it. Like, we managed to do what we needed to do in Iraq. We did what we did in Afghanistan without displacing 1 million people that were densely packed in order to do that. So that's number one. Number two, if you're telling me that the best that the Israeli Air Force can do is the kind of wholesale neighborhood flattening that we are seeing, then they suck, because our guys are way better than that.
Well,
our
hold
guys
on.
have always been better.
But I understand this.
Hold on.
What I'm saying is I understand.
Malcolm, just let me finish my thought, and I will definitely give you back the baton because I respect you. But so that's what I'm going to say. Absolutely, on no level. When you say, please, 1 million people, why don't you exit this area so we can do what we need to do? You are not talking about strategic bombing. You are talking about annexation. That is what you're talking about. Because not even in Vietnam did we tell 1 million people that they needed to move out of the DMZ. We've never done that, right? And if we don't have to do that in order to obtain military objectives, we didn't do that in Kuwait. We didn't do that anywhere, right? We've never had to displace 1 million people, ever. Malcolm, you know this and I know this. So
hold on.
I'm going to hold Israel to a little higher standard than, you're talking about, we're going to give you 36 hours to get the hell out of here. But you're coming up with battlefields that didn't have the same conditions. Because I'm going to tell you the one which did have the same conditions. The Second Battle of Fallujah. Okay? The Second Battle of Fallujah, we spent 6 months moving 90% of the city of Fallujah out of there. It took the Iraqis. We had to hit that place with 40,000 soldiers. What I'm trying to say here is this. This is a different battle set. The fighting area, which Hamas chose northern Gaza to be part of this. They didn't move 1 million civilians. The number of people that had to move was 400,000 up in northern Gaza.
The Israelis, like that's not a lot of people. Hold on. I'm sorry.
The Israelis dropped for 3 weeks leaflets to get them to move out of there. The battle force that was holding the civilian
into the water. I mean, the level of inhumanity here is not going to.
You guys need to get a map.
Is not going to. No, the
you got to get a
not
map
going to see
because there are areas.
I've gotten a map. That's insulting. Hold on.
If you're talking about, If you're talking about
Malcolm,
northern
if you're
Gaza,
going to talk about the mobilization of that many people, it is going to take 6 months to a year. If you're going to actually set up refugee camps for them to move to, if you're going to actually have food and water, you're going to have infrastructure for them to move. Like when you say you got to be out of here in 3 days,
yeah,
and
but
you don't
you're
give them
talking,
any sense of where they're going to
but
go.
you're talking as if we
go.
control. You're talking as if the Israelis control the ground. They don't. Okay,
Well, you
the people who control the ground
So let me
was the Hamas terrorist
Let me ask you this, because I know you have to run.
They don't have JAGs, by the way, in Hamas. They don't. They're a terrorist group.
They're not an armed force. They're
and the Israelis don't control every inch of that place. They actually had to invade, and in the sectors where they've invaded, they control it and move the population. Hamas at points wouldn't let them.
Do you hear what you're saying, my friend?
You're do.
Saying, like, they understand that if they say we're going to flatten this place in 36 hours, y'all got to roll, that there's no way they can really do that. They understood that that's what's causing our chafing here. Is that they have a strategic plan that just does not have any humanitarian component to it, because that just does not work.
Okay, I don't understand.
So many civilians have been killed. If this is their best
you're
effort
talking
to avoid
as
civilian death, they suck.
Okay, Pam, you're talking as if the conditions on the ground are something the Israelis control. They don't. They are controlled
but their
by a
military
terrorist
plan
group
is something that they control.
They're controlled by a terrorist group with 30,000 men, according to Hamas's own statistics and witnessed by the Russians. Okay, over 500 kilometers of underground tunnel, which
Israel built half of that.
Hold on, no, they don't. Israel only controls right now the northernmost tippy point section called Gaza City, North Gaza, Gaza City.
It's not
the rest of it, 2/3 of the Gaza Strip, which is, by the way, 25 miles by 4 miles long, is not controlled by the Israelis at all.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that your military plan would not work. Look, all I'm going to tell you, my friend,
it's their turf, it's their terrain.
Unit of the United States Armed Forces came to me as a JAG with this plan, I would have nixed it in a heartbeat and said this violates the rules of war. Way too much civilian casualty to be contemplated by the United States of America.
And what you probably would have recommended was that they would have to go in on ground and root them out without air power.
No, hey, we have done that before.
Not
we have done that before, right?
Not on this
well,
scale.
You know what? A lot of things never happened before started to happen. I understand what you're saying, and I brought you on because I wanted to get a better understanding. I don't know if I have a better understanding other than, here we are now. We just sent billions of dollars to Ukraine. That's still going on. Do you think there's going to be an end to that, Malcolm Nance, before we have to check?
Yeah, one of the things that I think U.S. news media is invested in is having a long story and having a quick victory. Ukraine is fighting for its existence. All right. They're winning the war. I mean, they are winning the war. They've destroyed literally every force, every person that entered Ukraine in 2022 is dead. They're fighting a new army every year. And now they've got new links with Israel because Russia backed Hezbollah. Russia backed Iran, who backed Hamas. PMC Wagner fighters were seen training Hamas. All of this is part and parcel of Russia's own war against you, me, and mobilizing the West to destabilize our government for one purpose, to put in Donald Trump as president.
Absolutely.
No, that we agree with.
By the way, can I make a quick point about Donald Trump? Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump would have told Netanyahu to slaughter everyone in Gaza without any question. And the Israelis were so hot on the 8th, it was Secretary Austin who told them to take 3 weeks to calm down, work out a ground battle plan, evacuate civilians, and do it right. Donald Trump, this would have been 100,000 dead civilians. I don't know why people think that having him back in office to deport 10 million Arab Americans like he's promised he will do, is beyond me.
I agree with
there we go. Okay, so I wanted to leave on agreement. We agree. Malcolm Nance, thank you for being here.
All right, y'all.
Appreciate you. All right.